Okay, great. Hi everyone. Would somebody be so kind as to let me know that you can actually hear and see everything? If you could just unmute yourself for a sec, that would be great. Okay, Emma, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, that's brilliant. So you're very welcome. So this evening's webinar is all about how to increase your practice value. So there's a little bit of feedback. So maybe Nate, can you go on mute? Okay. So for those of you I may know already, if you're customers, we have a lot of people that aren't customers yet. So just to let you know, my name is Edel. I'll be kind of hosting this webinar this evening. So just a little bit from me. My name is Edel, which I mentioned. I'm a registered nurse. I've worked with Vetstoria for a number of years. And so we're very fortunate today. So we're going to have a guest speaker, Dr. Gavin McCoubrey. So Gavin is a ex-vet and he also has an MBA and he is the CEO and founder of JANUS Consultancy. So yeah, very welcome, Gavin. How are you?
Grand, Adele, thank you very much. Still am a vet, by the way. I haven't been struck off yet, but yes, I know what
okay.
you mean. Ex-practicing vet. Ex-practicing vet.
Ex-practice. So our clients are quite fortunate because they get a 2-for-1 offer tonight. So they have 2 Irish people for the price of one. So yeah, that's always a bonus. I hope so. So yeah, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself and kind of your journey and how you've come to be where you are now?
Okay, absolutely. Yet again, thanks for having me, Adele. Yeah, Gavin McCoubrey, graduated from Liverpool in 1996. Advancement of animal welfare was one of the main reasons I chose to be a vet. So it was natural that my first job was with one of the charities. So I started working with the RSPCA in Manchester. Yeah, went on to be clinical director. It was an experience. It was very good clinically, surgically, medically. It also showed me how to run a very, very busy hospital and how to structure busy clinics, etc. During that time also I worked in Greece for the Greek Animal Welfare Fund. I worked in Taiwan for the World Society of Protection of Animals. So yeah, it was I have, you know, so it was a good fun time, and as I say, opened my eyes. But yeah, so following on from that, I went into private practice. That also was an experience, not necessarily for the good, but I learned a lot in my time in private practice of what I wouldn't do when I was a boss and when I had my own clinics. And if anything, I was thankful for my boss. It gave me the impetus to set up my first practice quite young.
Okay. Did you always know that you wanted to be an entrepreneur and set up your own practice, or is that something that organically came to you?
No, absolutely. I used to run various businesses at school, whether it be running school discos or running actual bookmakers at one stage. So absolutely, yes. So I would never have been happy working for somebody else. And it was a natural progression to going on my own place, to be honest, yes.
So when you started out, how old were you? How did you start out? Was it one vet practice? Yeah. How did you grow, etc.?
We started first practice. I knew working where I was at wasn't for me. You know, I had grown the practice list by about 60%, and my boss still wasn't happy. It was all about quite simply taking as much money from each client as possible without, to me, looking at the longer term. So at that stage, we drew up a map of Manchester. We plotted where every single practice was in Manchester, and then we identified regions we could actually target.
Okay.
As such, that was Tameside. So that's Tameside.
So yeah, so then when you started out, I believe you were one vet, one nurse practice, and you established yourself very well and quite quickly, I would believe. So you got to a 4 clinic set up with over 50 employees. So how did you get there, and how long did that take?
Yeah, so as you say, one vet, one nurse, the one vet being me. We were going up against one, the established vet, as I said, population of 250,000. He had 7 branches.
Wow.
Quite ruthless in the face of competition. We would undercut anybody to try to set up against him. So we had to go in almost cloak and dagger. We went in the first week. I walked around all the charities. I met them personally. But then the first week, I had their business looking for when they rehomed animals, they would, send them home with our vaccination booklets. I also, week 2, went around all the schools, trying to integrate myself in the local community. Yet again, as you said, my accent, I'm not from Manchester. But it was a way, hopefully the kids at the schools would go home and tell their mum about this new vet. And we slowly built it from there. It fairly grew organically at first. And after a year and a half, my partner came across, so my business partner came across, he was working elsewhere at the time. Once he came across, we grew exponentially. Initially, Adele, we were up against a very polished outfit. We didn't have much of a budget to start off with. And really looking at different strategies. So there's a very famous professor from Harvard called Porter, but Porter said there's 3 ways to penetrate an industry. So you're looking at either cost leadership, differentiation, or focus. Cost leadership is a very low cost, high volume. Differentiation, much more polished product. Price doesn't really come into it, and focus would be targeting, so market segmentation. So in a veterinary perspective, the focus would be your exotics, your feline clinics. Your differentiation would be looking at, your referral clinics, your high-end GP practices. But for us, it was quite simply cost leadership strategy. So getting that footfall, getting people through the door. And once we had them there, we were confident, certainly, hopefully keeping them, and then them going and recommending us via word of mouth, basically.
That's amazing to achieve 4 clinics and 50 employees. And then, how are you guys doing, if you don't mind me asking?
Now, or what? How were we doing, or what?
How were you doing at the time?
Yes, absolutely. Oh, we were flying, and we were, as I say, growing almost exponentially. We were reinvesting the money continually in both the premises and technology. So we moved from that cost leadership ultimately after about 6-7 years to differentiation, really high-end stuff, still looking after the charities. That was very important to both me and my partner. But, so growing week on week, but there, something wasn't quite right from our perspective. We couldn't put our actual finger on it, but our staff retention, Adele, wasn't really what we would hope it would be. He used a football analogy. When you thought we had a real settled team, you'd lose our star striker. And this happened again and again. So even though yet again, we kept growing and growing and growing, looking back, it wasn't really a happy place to work.
That's really interesting, because a lot of businesses and clinics would kind of measure their success based on their profitability, how they are performing financially. But that's really interesting that, you identified there's other ways to evaluate your success. Like you said, client retention, employee retention, organizational culture, those things as well.
Yeah, and we did eventually. I'd like to tell you, we noticed it straight away. We didn't, we were too caught up, and profitability as a yardstick, anywhere around 15% profitability of your turnover is classified as good. We were consistently 25%. Staff wages as opposed to turnover, around about 48%. We were 35%. It's all these indices. If you were looking at them and from an outsider, you would say, oh, everything's hunky dory, but it wasn't. And
when you identified those issues, about kind of staff kind of turnover and stuff like that, and what did you do? Did you have any kind of approaches or different things, styles you wanted to adapt to address that, or?
No, we did. I was blessed. My partner is a very, very good friend, so we had very open and honest conversations, and we couldn't keep continuing like this because we chasing our tails, so to speak. So actually signed up to do a postgraduate certificate in veterinary business management. And that was great. That was a 2-year course at Liverpool. I would highly recommend it to anybody, whether they be manager, whether it be a veterinary, a boss, whatever. And that, gave us the skill set then to look at various things in our business with your organization culture, your change management, conflict resolution, things that you'll find in every workplace. But the most, eye-opening aspect of that was looking at our leadership style, Adele, and
Okay.
what we can identify and almost look in the mirror, where we were what's called very transactional leaders. And transactional leaders, it's very much punishment and reward. So as we were growing, it
Gotcha.
was great because we were rewarding the staff every week with pizzas, whatever, because we were profitable.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, it was when things went wrong. And often, people now looking back, they don't basically do veterinary for the money, they do it for the love
No,
of
they
animals.
don't. Absolutely.
Simple thank you would go. So
100%.
looking at our leadership style was something that we had to change, and we did change, and we pivoted to what's called transformational. And transformational is all about listening to people, about empowering them. It's
Okay.
about letting them develop as individuals, both professionally and personally,
Yeah.
and letting them buy into what you were trying to do in the clinic and listening to their ideas and implementing their ideas. So that was what we did and how we went to structure it. So not only could they buy into and be committed to the organization, they actually then believe in us as leaders. So it's that was changed. That changed things massively.
Do you know, I think I'd still be a vet nurse if that's how it was at the time. So feeling heard, feeling appreciated, feeling empowered, being trusted. These are things that would have kept me in the industry. When I did my 4 years in UCD in Dublin, we started off with 43 RVNs. It was the first 4-year Bachelor of Science course. Graduated in 2013. 37 graduated, and everyone went on to be a vet nurse. And now I think there's only 6, potentially 7 still working as a vet nurse, which is really sad. And they knew what the salary was going in. So that's not the reason why they left.
I know, absolutely.
Yeah. So how do you achieve this? You know what I mean? So identifying these transactional leadership and going to transformational, how do you get there?
Absolutely. So maintaining that organizational culture that we had hopefully improved, and we had improved, that was reflected then in keeping staff. Central to that to us was teamwork and being part of a team.
Yeah.
And that was a two-way thing. So we got across to our staff our beliefs and our values as an organization and what we expected from them.
Okay.
So the employees' perception of what they knew, how they behaved, they represented Tameside Veterinary Clinic, both in and out of the clinic. When they had that uniform on, these were the values we stood by and what we wanted them to uphold. But in return, we offered them our absolute loyalty. We offered them job security. We empowered them. We wanted them to be the best that they could possibly be. And there's a guy, like a 2 times, a guy called Maslow, and he's got this pyramid. He constructed a pyramid. It was all about a hierarchy of needs, it's called. But at the bottom level, it's physiological. So you're eating, you're sleeping, whatever. The next layer, and you've got to fill in all these layers to get to the top, which is called self-actualization. It's basically being in a happy place, okay? And you've got to fill the layers in. So the second layer was happy home life, happy workplace. Now, the happy home life, we couldn't play Cupid, so we couldn't set them up with a nice partner.
That's a shame.
That's a shame,
You would have won brownie points.
I like that we were good bosses at the end. We weren't that good, but what it was, we could go ask them what they want. How could we help them, and how could we help their home life? And that, with the nurses in particular, most of them, it's a very female-centric industry, and most of them had young families. We actually sat down and asked them what rotas they wanted to work. So some wanted to work 3 long days, some wanted to work 5 shorter days, and we that was on a case-by-case basis.
Wow.
We let them decide, because it suited what suited one wasn't suited the others. And we also then structured the operation lists. We structured consults. Everything was structured accordingly. So if we had a high complement of staff, we could book more ops in. With the vets as well as the nurses, the vets, we couldn't go that far, but we had asked them, what clinics they wanted to work in, what suited them better, what rota they wanted with regards to operations. So just trying to be as accommodating as possible to create that happy place for as many of them. You can't please everybody, but sort of create that.
So nice really kind of having them involved and having them aligned in terms of like I spoke to you earlier before, you mentioned like having a mission statement. I mean, would you
Absolutely.
mind kind of telling us a little bit about that?
That was a big thing. So we are adopting this bottom-up approach, so getting them involved. And the mission statement was one of the first things we asked them to partake in, and they were everybody contributed to this. So it's fundamentally, what's your organization about, and what does it want to be? So it is your reason for existence. It's should be inspirational, it should inspire employees. It should, from the two schools of thought, both strategy and philosophy. And it has been proven repeatedly to increase profitability. And the sad thing is 40% of employees don't actually know their own mission statement. So it was important what we getting buy-in from them. So they've contributed to what was the mission statement.
I think that's really good, and it makes everyone feel quite valued, because there are things that, you know, front of house will see and pick up on that, you know, the vet doing the TPLO in the background won't pick up on, you know, being the face, feeling that vibe, you know, so having everyone really having an input on that. Just
Absolutely.
makes
and help fosters that
sense.
Fosters that sense of team, which is yet again back to our organizational culture, Adele, and back to what we really wanted to protect.
And loyalty as well, I would imagine, very much comes into that when you have a sense of kind of team, you know, we're in there in it together, you know, they're feel more valued and more likely to go that extra mile kind of for you. And also in terms of like so that's your mission statement, kind of goals. And so obviously, you know, people like to know, as employees, you know, as a vet nurse, where can this go? You know, what's the vision maybe for the future?
Absolutely. Well, and the mission was the glue. It's called the glue that holds an organization together. The vision statement, which was the other thing we got the guys on board with, and the vision statement, that was you know, what as an organization you wanted to become. It had to be credible, it had to be realistic, you know, but and attractive. So I'm putting the organization in a better place than when you actually started the whole process. And yet again, getting buy-in, because it's one thing being a transformational leader and asking for input, but if you're not actually seeing to implicate and what the, you know, even if it doesn't work out, but it was all about, we'll try that. We'll get everybody involved with it. And
I think quite important to have it quite realistic as well, you know, Gavin, because you can't promise the world, because you know you can't deliver, and have realistic expectations about that.
Absolutely.
And what did you have any particular tools that kind of helped you get to kind of defining what those things were?
Yeah, we did, and they recommended the best strategy for arriving at your mission and vision is what's called a SWOT analysis. So SWOT analysis is looking at an organization's strength, looking at opportunities, but also identifying and minimizing those weaknesses and reducing any threats. And the thing about a SWOT analysis, and that's what you see, this is our original one from Tameside. They are only as good as how they're made. That sounds very obvious, but you know,
that makes sense.
The phrase you use, you can't use anything ambiguous. You can't use anything, you know, with a double meaning, whatever. So everything has to be actionable. So, and quantifiable. So, you know, we don't use things like friendly, or, you know, those are things you can't really, as I say, make into an action statement. But it is the SWOT analysis. They are very, very good. So there's ours. I'm trying to move all these, anything that's negative there, and sitting down with the staff, and yet again identifying all these were identified with the staff, with input from them, and how we could then move anything negative and try and make it into a positive.
Yeah, so let's say, for example, when you're looking at your weaknesses or perhaps your threats, you know, how do you go about ensuring that the next time you have that team meeting in 6 months, or, you know, in a year from now, when you look back, you know, that you've moved on from that was something, you know, that you've identified and you've tried to work on that? I mean, are there any particular weaknesses that you had in your practice, and kind of ways that you could, you know, address them? Any obvious things?
Absolutely. And it's that whole cycle. It's one thing saying this is a problem and never coming back to it. I think it's important to revisit that and see, has action been taken? You know, we used to do that to a certain extent monthly, coming up with a problem and addressing that. That used to kick off every meeting, saying, was that issue resolved? Is everybody happy? We'll move on. Certainly on a bigger scale, things like marketing and online presence, which we had identified as a problem. And that was, you know, we were sort of aware of it, and then hearing the staff repeatedly highlight how they felt that could be improved. These
Sure.
were very important issues we could address, and we did address subsequently.
Well, particularly with, you know, having an online presence and considering, you know, since COVID has hit, over 60% of millennials now have pets. Social media is a big one there. Is that so? I mean, you sold your practice in 2017. Is
Yeah.
that something back then? Obviously, social media has a much stronger presence now, but is it something that you identified then as being a place where you could really have a strong presence? And did you make
Absolutely.
the most of that?
We didn't, looking back now, and I wish we had, but it would have been nice. And certainly, you know, a really good website.
Yeah.
That's often the first thing that a lot of people see. So they don't go and
Yes.
see a clinic or their vets in the interior, but, you know, you know, that, as I say, was a portal to our actual business. And yeah, and so that was one of the first things we got up to. Quality, should have said.
One of the things I love, at least about 2021, is marketing doesn't have to cost a fortune now. Actually, sometimes it can be quite free when you have like Facebook, social media, emails, text messages, Google My Business, all of these types of things. Do you mind me asking, you know, did you invest much money in marketing, and did it take a bit of time to see those results? Or
Yeah, we
I'm
probably
grilling
could
you
have.
here, aren't I?
No, that's grand. That's why I'm here. We probably could have invested more, but certainly we did. It's all about, to me, targeted marketing. So certainly the
Okay.
likes of Facebook and the demographics, and, you know, yeah. So we did use Facebook. We actually put on the road a day for a member of staff to actually do our social media, because
Whoa,
keeping
that's
that
good.
up, it's that constant and replying to people. It's not enough just having a social media presence. It's actually a very active one. And then we
Yeah.
did employ, I must admit, third parties with
Okay.
skill sets that we couldn't do. And to be honest, our time is better off actually with clinical work or running the clinic. So yes, so
Yeah.
they were doing certain engine optimization and on all that, Google Analytics, etc.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think something that I'm sure a lot of our attendees are kind of wondering about is how corporates have affected the vet industry in the UK, in Europe, not just the UK, and are there opportunities for independent vet practices? And what's your opinion on that? And if you wouldn't mind kind of telling us your story there.
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, yes, I think that there's great opportunity for independent vets. You know, as we know, the corporates have massively disrupted the industry. I think analysts say it's going to bottom out at maybe 60-70%, and I know now they're going into France and Italy and etc. So the corporate model, it has brought a lot of good. So I like the graduate schemes they do and that support network, particularly for new graduates coming through. And but, you know, I am seeing more and more what I would call corporate convergence. So the corporates, you know, they're competing for the same, they're adopting the same strategies to compete almost in the same markets. And this convergence, you get that in any industry where you'll get firms targeting the same, or as I say, that same strategy. So I think as independents, avoiding that corporate convergence that you get with this influx of the generic corporate groups, highlighting their independence. The biggest thing to me, Adele, was using their fleet-footedness. So that ability to respond, any veterinary practice, particularly independent, should be built on continuous feedback. And I don't care if that's Mrs. Smith, how was your day, how was your weight, to a more structured questionnaire sent out to clients. But I find as independents, you can react very quickly to that and very proactively. So they haven't got those layers of managers that the corporates do.
So you feel that's an advantage?
Absolutely. You know, and certainly from our time in practice, you know, we set up an orthopedic referral center in one afternoon.
Okay.
You know, we got a visit, and we didn't just go and interview we got a visiting orthopedic guy to come in. So then, as part of our differentiation strategy, we then, instead of having to send any orthopedics off to University of Liverpool or competing practices, we could then say to the guys, you can come in and we'll see you here at our clinic, what suits you. So
Well,
anyway, but
that's very interesting. If you don't mind me, Gavin, just going back to that. I mean, did you identify that there was a need for that, you know, where you were? And how, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, so there was an opening, the orthopedic guy, the competing practice, he couldn't work for a while. So, you know, but and once we heard that, it was a great opportunity. You know, we had looked for the right candidate, so for an internal position, but you know, that was the best of both worlds. So we didn't have the outlay, we didn't have to sign up a very experienced, a very expensive professional. You know, so we could come and go and come and go as and when we chose.
I'm going to ask you something, you know, and this is a complete personal, or it's quite a subjective answer, I'm sure. But obviously, you identified an opportunity there. Do you think it's smart to have some kind of an eye on what I don't want to say the competition, but the local surrounding veterinary practices are doing? And perhaps is there an opportunity to offer something that maybe they're not offering?
Yeah, that's very, very important, Adele, you know, and you should be continually looking out for other revenue streams.
Okay.
You should be, as I say, you know, most independent vets need to be resilient in the face of adversity. You're up against these corporate guys with massive budgets, you know, with all this, you know, the might behind them. But what I would like, and what we using that as a positive, you know, I work with so many good guys, whether it be web design, whether it be marketing, whether it be copywriting, etc. You know, so as an independent, they are out there. You can access, and in a way, you almost have a bigger pool than a corporate who's got certain individuals in those roles.
So there is that support for the independent, isn't there? You
absolutely.
Know? Yeah. Well, may not have as big a budget, but there is that support there. Yeah, they can still do the things.
Absolutely, you know, and I think this highly competitive environment they're in, it stimulates innovation, and that innovation as a practice makes you more resilient, and also helps you compete, gives you like a sustainability. So it's and when I go into practice, what I do, and when I have advised them, so I spoke earlier briefly about Porter. There's a modification of Porter's 3 strategies.
Okay.
When you go in,
explain that one to me. I've never heard of that one before.
Yeah, so we're looking at there's 3 aspects to it. There's operational excellence. So operational excellence is it's a core philosophy of what your practice should be. It looks at all that problem solving, all that leadership, all that teamwork, and how the organization can continually improve. You've got product leadership, what is those managerial level decisions, which how you got a good team in place, how you own the strategy for the team. But it's not just having a good team in place and good members of that team, like giving them the tools. There's no point having, for instance, Suzanne that's great on an endoscope without actually having the endoscope to do that. So that will deliver the best product you can do. And then final aspect of that is, and to me, the most important is customer intimacy. So it's an advanced form of customer centricity, it's called, but it's building those relationships with the client. You're looking for the retention of these clients in the long run. You want to make them special, and you're looking to provide what's called delight. Delight is a measure of that individual's likeliness to re-engage with the consumer. In a nutshell, it means they're going to come back to your practice or not. So if you show them delight, they experience delight, they're more likely to come back, you're more likely to retain them. And also there's less of an emphasis for these guys on price or what you're charging them. So all that's very important.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Kind of Vetstoria's kind of ethos is very much in line with that. So in terms of customer intimacy, if we can take a lot of pressure off the massive influx of phone calls front of house, it frees up the receptionist to really focus on delivering like a high level of customer service and really focus on the client that's right in front of them. You know, those things that you can automate. You don't need a skilled person to book an appointment, you know, and if they can really focus on delivering that excellent journey from the moment they walk in the door, consult room, surgery, discharge, and then right up to the pay the bill, and then, you know, greet them out, you can have that seamless kind of journey throughout. I think that's
absolutely, Adele.
Yeah. Is that something you recognized in your practice at all?
Absolutely. It's trying making them feel special. So, you know, if you have Mrs. Smith coming in at 6 o'clock with a chocolate lab called Coco, I wanted the staff saying, "Hi, Coco, how's it doing?" People sort of thing. But also what we used to do, and we've taken that one step further, they would be welcome, they'd be talking, and then the phone would ring at the reception desk. So we actively moved the phones away from the reception desk so that client has the undivided attention of
I love that. That's brilliant. So you decided to bring the phone lines to back of house, so that
They
you
actually went back in the pharmacy, so you could focus on the customer.
if only Vetstoria was around in 2017, then maybe you would,
Absolutely, absolutely.
maybe you wouldn't have needed to do that.
Might have to
Yeah,
set up practice again, but yeah, absolutely.
I
So
love that. Another thing as well, I was just thinking there is like autonomy, giving clients autonomy, to be able to book appointments when they want, how they want, where they want, from their bed if they want, and to be able to visualize exactly, the availability of each individual clinician, obviously purely based on all of the preferences and exclusions that the practice has had put in place back at the house as well, just kind of giving them that autonomy as well, particularly millennials, I feel, they like that.
And I think clients, they want to be proactive. So if they much love pets being sick in the middle of the night, if they can go, these guys can book an appointment, that's great, because a common complaint was they would phone, when I was in practice, phone the emergency clinic. They would either go there, or they would say, phone your practice in the morning, and they would then, depending on how busy we were, not have that appointment slot. But from what you believe, if you have that appointment slot, put your mind at rest.
Yeah, absolutely. So with our customers, we get a lot of, on average, 20 new clients a week, but a lot of those new clients are coming in at 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m., not for that time. It's not an emergency. They don't want to go to the out of hours, but let's say Fluffy starts vomiting 2 or 3 times. Instead of waiting, the 3 hours until the practice opens up, calling to see if there's a free slot, they can jump on their phone, and within 20 seconds, they've secured the first appointment at 8 a.m., drop the dog down, be at work for 9:30, and that immense peace of mind is there. So we get a lot of new clients coming around that time, because maybe, unfortunately, their current vet that they're registered with doesn't offer online booking. So their only option really is the out of hours. And then there's that whole, if my client goes to somebody who's offering out of hours and also general practice during the day, will I get them back? There's that as well, which is a fear within the industry, that you lose them to somebody else.
It is a real fear. Adele used to constantly crack me up, to be honest, and saying, can you not send that animal back? And it was, and the clients wanted back. And
I've seen it a lot in practice. Like, can you please send us back our client? I've seen it a lot, an awful lot. For sure. So, we talked about all these different types of kind of relationships, particularly relationship marketing strategies and stuff like that. Are there any particular ones that you would advise, or?
Yeah, to me, and particularly, preventative veterinary care, moving it away almost from discretionary purchase to like a mandatory purchase, and I think historically most vets have been very transactional in their marketing style. So that annual booster and might have a couple of wormers or fleas, and moving that to what relationship marketing is all about. And it's actually looking to back to the delight the customers. It's looking to nurture that long-term relationship, so you're maximizing their customer lifetime value. It promotes the loyalty, chance of retaining them. And as I say, as opposed to that single sale, very short-term benefits. Also all this is very conducive to that word of mouth. Which is right on, and that positive reaffirmation of what your actual clinic does. And yet again, everything geared around the long-term retention of these clients, basically. So they're not going to go to the new vet, they're not going to go to the corporate, whatever.
So the kind of bigger picture, and making sure, they're not coming to you just for this one-time, discount, that they're actually staying with you.
Staying in that relationship between vet and client, very personal, a lot of trust involved, and often built up over a long time. And that's something that certainly I would look to leverage for the animal's sake. So a lot of times I would say, look, I've got to recommend this, that, and the other. If it was my own animal, as my own dog, I wouldn't do it. I've offered it to you, but save your money. But then when I had to turn around to Dell and say, look, your dog really needs this. And 8.9, they say, Gavin, that's fine. So building up trust. They are a valued member of the family, and when you treat them as such and see that, price, to be honest, and cost really come into it. It's, you know, I think it's that old adage, isn't it? If people don't care what you know, as long as they know that you care, and that's so true.
100%. Obviously things are changing, you know, particularly in Ireland, you know, it was always a case of you having to convince the client, I really think you should do this blood, I really think you should do this x-ray. UK is quite a bit ahead, you know, the clients are like, I want this x-ray and I want that blood, which is fantastic. But I think one of the main reasons for that is that kind of, they trust that you have their client's best interest at heart, not so much about making a quick buck. I think that's the difference there, in my opinion anyway.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. Many conditions I told people you don't actually need this, and they may have wanted the x-ray, but I'm saying, like, I don't want to knock your dog out. I don't want to put it under an anesthetic.
Yeah.
Your dog doesn't want to be here. I've yet to meet a cat or a dog that physically wants to be at the veterinary clinic, you know?
Yeah.
You know, be at home.
And then they'll come back to you the next time.
Hopefully.
They're like, he was really honest with me. Yeah. And then, you know, they will come back to you. Joe, there's something I really wanted to ask you, and I'm sure it's something that every single independent practice out there is thinking, you know, should I stay as this entrepreneur or should I go? And what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think, a while back you asked, you know, the corporates first approached us, it was 2012, and at that stage we had absolutely no intention of selling. You know, me and my partner, we'd both turned 40, we were too young to retire, and certainly the numbers involved.
Far too young.
Far too young, wouldn't even remotely. Well, I would have done if the money was there, but no, it was far too young. We kept them, but what we wanted to do was maximize and make us as attractive. So, you know, entrepreneurial and any entrepreneurial process is not complete without an exit strategy. It doesn't matter if you're selling to colleagues, if you're selling, giving it to your son or daughter, or you're selling to corporate. So you want to make your practice as attractive as possible to as many potential suitors as possible. And then, you know, you can almost pick and choose the corporates. We were very fortunate when we had invested in key personnel, we'd invested in key sites, and we had invested in the locations. But you know, we had all the corporates interested, and we received competing offers from all of them.
That's
we actually
brilliant.
Well, we were, but we could then pick and choose, and we also could have got more money if we had went with a couple of others. But we had went with the one that we would be happier going back to our staff and saying, I won't name anybody here, but you know, it doesn't take rocket science to find. Yeah. But you know, it was just happy because we had to look them in the eye. My partner was staying on the back of my certificate in veterinary business. I always wanted to do an MBA, so I always wanted. And so as regards that, you know, the entrepreneurial journey and being an entrepreneur, it is quite stressful. It's a high risk, high reward strategy. You're never away from the place. And when they kept coming back, and when it got to the situation that we could pick and choose what corporates we went to, who would give us the autonomy, well, then we did sit around the table with them, Adele. So it was.
So you feel it's important to have an exit strategy?
Absolutely. Harvested, and irrespective of corporate or not, you know, and they do say 10 years down the line. When I first heard that, I thought it was ridiculous. But it was putting in place, because any success has been proven to massively affect organization performance. It really worries staff, you know, and relaying fears. So having all these processes in place to alleviate, particularly the staff, you know.
So if you feel you need to have that in mind, how do you go about making your practice really attractive to corporates, and having loads of options? How do you do that?
So on a basic level, you're basically increasing your turnover, which is obvious, particularly what's called your EBITDA. But also for us, it was ensuring there was, as I say, key personnel, really, really modern buildings, really well located. We then invested in, as I say, all the equipment that was needed. So, as I say, maximizing how attractive we were to potential buyers, and then also going further that and looking at, you know, making sure there's no outstanding HR problems, making sure all employment contracts were watertight.
Something I'd never think of.
It was something we didn't, to be honest, at the time. But then, and you know, the machinery's up to date, service agreements, you know, it's surprising what goes into when you ultimately go to sell.
You would just think that just that the profit, the money would be enough, but it's not.
No, it's not. The due diligence, what it's called, that they go through is quite intense.
Yeah.
And particularly with the numbers involved, you don't blame these guys.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. God, obviously I'm a little bit conscious that, we're kind of running out of time, but what I would love to do, if you're okay, Gavin, I feel like I've grilled you to pieces, so thank you for that. But if anyone has any questions, and if Nate, you were happy to send them through, that would be lovely. Gavin would love to answer, I'm sure. Anyone at all?
Yeah, there's one from Adrian.
Yes.
For Gavin. What
Go for it.
third-party marketing agency have you used for Google Analytics and etc.?
Sorry?
I think that's
Sorry?
It's just on the question and answer. Question from Adrian. What third-party marketing agency have you used?
Well, in the time and practice, we used a combination of OnSwitch, which were good, and we used VetStream. So my business partner, he looked after all that. He was the more technically minded of the two of us. But yeah, that's what we used at the time.
I'm not 100% sure, please correct me if I'm wrong, anyone, that you need to have a third-party expert in order to have Google Analytics. So I believe Google Analytics is all about monitoring the traffic to your website, etc. I think anyone can set that up.
I would jump in there, Adele, and I'm very technophobe, and I'm pretty useless, but I actually do my own now with a consultancy business, and I did my website, and I'll go to my admin screen. Yes, you can see it all. It's once somebody explains it to you.
Yeah.
It is doable. Yeah,
it is doable. Okay, that's a really good question. I hope that was enough of an answer for you, Adrian. If you wanted to contact me further about that, I do have a couple of people that I can put you in touch with, that work closely with our customers and that are amazing from a marketing perspective. Are there any other questions at all?
Yeah, Adele, there are quite a few.
Sure, go for it.
Are you seeing them on your screen?
Hold on a second.
No.
Q&A. Yes, I am. Okay. So, next one is from David. David, I believe you're from South Africa. I remember speaking to you when I was in APAC. Hi, David van Zwanenberg. I can never pronounce your name. Vets North, is that correct? I know it's you. I remember you. So you asked, what's the current range of, oh God, that's a hard word, EBITDA multipliers that are being used to value practices?
Okay, yeah. And
do you know what that means, Gavin? I have no clue.
Yeah, EBITDA, so it's earnings before EBITDA, yeah, interest, depreciation, taxes, and amortization. They were here, and I think they've peaked anywhere between 12 and 14. But I do believe in what I've seen, and anecdotally they are dropping. So I do think that's why corporates now are looking at fresher fields. So that's why they're going into France and going into Italy, because I know this private equity money. And what we learned is anecdotally, in times of depression or low interest rates or return on investments, people spend money on two things: alcohol and pets. So it was very, very safe for these equity funds to come into. But I know from talking to some vets that the offers they got originally were then subsequently not so much retracted, but adjusted something. So an increased buy-in, an increased working out, that was even going back a year. So I think I do think they're falling, as I say, 12 to 14. When we went to sell our practice, chatting to one of the lawyers, he said those figures are outside of the tech industry. They're unheard of. They were unheard of. So
David, I can put you in touch with Gavin if you want to discuss that further. And I've just remembered it's New Zealand that you're in Vets North. Yes, New Zealand, not South Africa. Okay, we have another one from Sam. Guys, you've got very difficult surnames to pronounce, I have to say, so please excuse me. Sam Saminowitz, hope I got that right. It's good to see people coming from, you know, all over the globe, which is great. So when competing, with corporates, one of the biggest challenges is economies of scale regarding inventory management. Besides buying groups, do you have any other ideas?
Sorry, Adele, you froze there for a bit. Go on, sorry, the economy.
Oh, sorry about that. So Sam had asked, when competing with corporates, one of the biggest challenges is economies of scale regarding inventory management. So besides buying groups, do you have any other ideas?
Well, the buying group is a big one, and I do think there will be more collaboration between independent veterinary practices. I am seeing actually more and more in that, these collaborative networks coming together. I think structuring around your CPD and trying to localize that and pull learning together. Not really, I'm afraid. No, it's really highlighting your independence, and I think what the corporates are very good at, they don't rebrand. So I think we had a bit of a backlash here last week, and I think the start of it. So by not rebranding, people still think they're going to their local vets, and I think there will be a little bit of a backlash from that. So buying groups, I don't know, really collaborating with staff is one thing, and maybe training staff and shared CPD, I would say, but afraid not much.
And Gavin, you're happy to share your contact details after this for those people that would like to kind of explore that further. Okay, that's great. I have another, David Hodge at Stellar Vets. Yes, hello David, how are you? These are some of my favorite customers here, I have to say. So did your team know you were selling? I am seeing practices around me that are imploding post-sale as the staff are absolutely furious about the sale. That's
absolutely. I absolutely, it's certainly initially it was somewhat cloak and dagger, to be honest, but once we could go to the staff and all about, I'd be for me to stand here and say about being a transformational leader and then just spring it upon them. No, we sat them down. As I say, we could have got a lot more money going with another couple of corporates, but we knew the one we went to, and two actual individuals did say, Gavin, thank God you went with who you did with. Otherwise, if you had gone with X or Y, I would have punched you. Several nurses said that to me.
Oh,
so
really?
It was. So, and that's factual. So
did you keep them involved in the conversation, Gavin?
When we could, when it was signed deal, we couldn't. It was up until a certain. You sign what's called a non-disclosure agreement, so you do it. So once we could tell them, we told them who we were. We told them why we wanted to do it and what we were about. We assured them that that our staff to us were everything, and we wanted to, and people don't like change, but we had to communicate that change to them and the reasons for the change, because if people think something's broke, why try and fix it? But we said, look, we were up against a lot of the corporates, we were up against their financial backing, their business acumen, whatever. So we as soon as we could tell them, we did tell them. And we do, you're right, David, about practices imploding. I think that's a problem more and more corporates will encounter, and I'm particularly finding the vets at the front line. I'm hearing reports of people who have done business degrees dictating to vets about KPIs and such, like, at least if I spoke to a vet, I've been there and I've done it, but you can't apply basic economic principles to a veterinary practice. So you can't say you're doing 10 blood tests this week, I want you to do 40. It doesn't work, particularly a non-vet telling a vet. So we told them as soon as we can, or as soon as we could.
I've seen that a lot in practice. I've had the pleasure of locuming all over the UK for loads of independents and corporates, and I've seen that this is your target. This is what you need to do this week. You need this many X-rays, this many dentals, this many, and it's like,
it's crazy. And back to that upselling work. Clients find that out soon enough, and it's if you're a transactional marketer or whatever, you will get that, and you will get that one sale. But leveraging that long-term affiliation,
they won't come back.
They won't come back. Then you don't blame them, but maximum long, like customer lifetime value, as they say, is everything.
And people like to talk either when they're incredibly happy or they're incredibly pissed off, excuse my French.
Right.
It's either one or the other. It's never just, you know, in between. Yeah.
And I think in a very much a now society with the social media, they can go straight on and
exactly. Google reviews as well. Nearly everyone has Googled my business. So Google reviews, it's the first place I go to for everything. A new shampoo, a new restaurant, the latest lager in Ireland. I'm on Google review. I'm checking that out. Yeah, absolutely.
Not Guinness.
No, Guinness is sold. I don't need to check the reviews. I know it's good. So I actually think that's all the questions that we have.
There's one more from Susan McCann.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can see it here.
Email campaign. It's
sure.
It would be in the chat, but I can just relay it here.
Yeah, sure.
There are some metrics on measuring value that are not too complicated and doable.
Okay. The obvious one being profit, but profit to me is not enough. What we were a big advocate for was looking at your managerial accounts. So historically, a lot of vets just look at their financial accounts, which once you get them, they're historic. They've gone, and they're certainly no indicator of present performance or where your practice is doing. So it's not enough. So we used to actually get monthly managerial accounts, and what we had was they were broken down individually into how each clinic was performing. Further broken down into how each individual within those clinics were performing, and you know they give us a really good idea and a very easy and quantifiable idea of how, as I say, not just the clinics, but who's making the money there, and then who we could reward. You know, when it came to pay rises and such, like we could say, guys, you're doing this is great, keep it going. But they're
yeah, obviously, for those on the line that are our customers, I think the obvious thing is, you know, your dashboard, all of the analytics there, new clients, you know, if they're starting the process, are they dropping out? If they're dropping out, where? Identifying those trends and behaviors, all of that data there, how you're doing versus the industry average in your area. We can enable Google Analytics, percentage of bookings out of hours. There's a lot of analytics and a lot of data there. You know, if you are not utilizing that to the best of its capabilities, please get in touch with me. I'll ensure that we have someone reach out to you to give you an overview of how you are performing with Vetstoria, and just make sure that you have access to that data and you have all that data that you need.
Adele, sorry, and I'm not saying this because you guys are hosting it. That's priceless. All that information, you know, we had to actually crawl through, and using whatever computer system we were on at the stage, and actively withdrawing. Everything now is about big data, you know, and getting as much data as you can, and it's how you utilize that data. But you know, to me, and yet again, I haven't been prompted to say that you know, that would save a hell of a lot of legwork. You know, retain clients, active clients. You know, from each clinic, you should see. You know, what we would do is, as I say, client retention, number of clients converted into operations from the vaccines and such, like all that information.
Absolutely.
Drilling that down further to what vets are involved in that is a big thing.
There's even things that we can do, like if you are running a digital marketing ad, which you can do via Vetstoria for free, use it anywhere, social media, emails, anything like that. You can even see straight away, you know, how many people have clicked on that, how many new clients have been acquired, how many of those dental checks have turned into procedures, how much revenue is made, and you have that automatically as well. You know, which is quite beneficial. I'll be honest with you, our corporates that are working with us are obsessed with the analytics and the dashboard, you know, and they keep an incredibly close eye on that. I would encourage independents to explore it a little bit more, or reach out to us, you know, to organize a call, and we'll make sure that we, you know, go through everything with you, show you kind of how you're performing in certain areas, things we can do to influence, you know, uptake of appointments as well. Yeah, anything at all, just reach out to myself and I'll organize that for you. Are there any more questions, Nate?
No more questions. I just want to let everyone know that the recording will be made available, and also together with Gavin's email address, if you need to contact Gavin for a consult or a chat, anything Gavin can help you with. I'm sure Gavin is very happy to help. So yeah, in the next couple of days when I cut out the beginning and the end bit.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much for organising that, Nate, and Gavin. Thanks a million. It's been a pleasure. It's incredibly interesting, and yeah, we'll make sure that those that want to chat further will know how to reach out and chat to you.
Great. Cheers, guys. Thanks very much.
Thanks, guys. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Take care. Bye. Bye.
Bye, everyone.